Pope Francis is warning about the dangers of surging nationalism, especially in the remarks coming from political leaders. In a new interview with an Italian newspaper, the Holy Father said, quote, "I am worried because you hear speeches that resemble those by Hitler in 1934. For more on what the Pope is saying, the editor of Crux, John Allen, joins us now from Rome. John, thank you for being with us.
It's always a pleasure.
The Pope is strongly opposing the populist rhetoric many politicians are using these days in the face of the rising tide of immigrants. Do you believe he's calling out someone, and could that be the Trump administration?
Well, there's a natural tendency for people all around the world to assume that when the Pope speaks, he's talking about them. But the reality of this situation is, although the kind of rhetoric that Trump espouses would be encompassed in what the Pope said, there are all kinds of reasons to think that Pope Francis was not specifically addressing Donald Trump and the current debate that's going on in the United States about whether Trump's rhetoric has helped fuel a climate of hate. I mean, for one thing, this interview was given to an Italian newspaper called La Stampa, which, not coincidentally, is the newspaper that his new editorial director, veteran Italian journalist Andrea Tornielli, used to work for. So this is the Pope paying off an Italian debt, really, rather than wanting to wade into the American situation. And secondly, there's a much more immediate thing going on here in Italy, which is that Italy's own populist, anti-immigrant Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini recently brought down the Italian government in once new elections in which he may well seize power entirely by himself. So if Pope Francis is talking about anyone specifically, it's much more likely to be Salvini than Trump.
Well, that brings me to the next thing that he's addressed. Francis has also said that a nation has the right to sovereignty, but not to close its borders, and migrants have a right to life. That's a worldwide message, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the United States is, of course, struggling with the immigration issue, as it has been for some time, but it's hardly the only place that's doing that. I mean, Europe has been in the grip of a migrant and refugee crisis since 2015, shortly after Francis was elected. It continues to be a very hot issue here. So this is very much a global message from the Pope, and basically what he is doing is taking this notion of what he has described as a culture of welcome, a culture of encounter, and extending it into the political realm and saying that politicians who keep talking about us and we as opposed to them are not exactly modeling a culture of encounter.
Okay, but is the Pope wading into deep waters with what appears to be political activism?
Well, look, I mean, popes since the dawn of time have straddled this border between politics and religion. And in recent times, John Paul II was instrumental in bringing down European communism, right? I mean, Pope Benedict XVI did battle against what he saw as an exaggerated separation of church and state. So, yeah, I mean, Pope Francis is to some extent wading into deep waters, but on the other hand, I think he would tell you that he's doing it not as a politician, but as a pastor, somebody who's concerned not about votes, but souls.
Well, now, and I know you said that this message may not be directed at President Trump, but do you think the words are registering at the White House?
We are already in campaign season for 2020 in the United States. I think the Trump administration realizes that if it is going to be reelected, it is going to need those religious voters to turn out one more time, which includes a significant chunk of Catholic voters. So, whether the president's policy decisions are going to be driven by the Pope is one question. Whether he's going to be sensitive to what the Pope says and try to take the edge off of it is another. And I suspect the answer to that second question, at least, is a strong yes.
Editor of Crux, John Allen, thank you for being with us today.
You're very welcome.